And see, I'm up there saying we're having a good time. And that is, but if it starts to not be a good time, I can't start yelling at people.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee. It's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another ridiculous and unnecessary intro. Are you want me to push one of these?
Dusty Slay. Dusty, thank you for doing this with us today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
We start every podcast by asking, what's the first music you remember loving as a kid?
Well, I mean, I think that, country music was what my family listened to. So, 90s country. I mean, I don't know. I guess I was born in the 80s, so it wasn't 90s country at that time. Right. But I don't know. It was all country, whatever was on the radio for us, really. And then my mom really liked Bon Jovi. Okay. So that was probably what I listened to the most. Okay. My dad had my dad liked... it's like country, like singing. He never was into instrumental stuff. So like Statler Brothers, Oak Ridge Boys, he loved that stuff. Yeah. He liked Kenny Rogers and the First Edition. He said he did more singing when he was with the band. I don't know if that's true, but
probably so. Yeah.
So that's as a kid, that's what I was jamming out to. I mean, I sang The Devil Went Down to Georgia really loud a lot with headphones on and sang the, son of a bitch line a few times. And not knowing that my mom could just hear me doing it over and over again.
Because you can't hear in that.
Yeah, right. So, but that was fun.
So you grew up in Alabama, right?
Yes.
And I've heard the bits and the stories from the trailer park, right?
Yeah, I mean, my parents got divorced when I was like 2 or 3, and so my mom lived in a trailer park, my dad lived on a farm, and so I went back and forth, and just got a real dose of the country life on both ends, a farm and a trailer park, and it was a lot of fun. I mean, I my first cassette tape I owned, I think, was Brooks and Dunn, Brand New Man. I think that was the first cassette tape I ever owned.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, I mean, we were all in. We were all in with country. I mean, that's still what I like. I mean, I'll venture into some classic rock here and there. Yeah. I like my rock to be about as close to country as it can get.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
So was the childhood thing something you just took all through high school or anything? Did you chase change, or was it pretty much that, through your high school years and on?
Well, when I got my driver's license, it was the first time I ever got to control the radio station, really.
Right.
And I kind of, that would have been in 98 when I got a license. So whatever was on the radio in 98. I mean, I saw you put out a video recently, but Britney Spears' Hit Me One More Time was out. And I mean... later I'm like, I'm not supposed to like Britney Spears, right? Sure. But at the time, I had never heard this song before. I was like, this is a really good song. Right. And, I was into, Marcy Playground, Sex and Candy.
Okay. I remember
those.
That.
So that was a good time. So that's what I was jamming. Any kind of Third Eye Blind, Eve 6, any popular 90s stuff. I bought a Slipknot album. I've gone down every musical road. My last name's Slay. I bought a couple of Slayer albums just to see what they were about.
You almost have to.
Yeah, right. A little much for me, but they had some fun. They had some fun things.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had a Drunk Drivers Against Mad Mothers, which seemed a little intense of a song. But,
right.
You know what I mean? But I got a few drinking and driving jokes. I'm not mad at people about it, but...
Yeah. It makes you wonder why dads aren't against drunk drivers.
Right, yeah. Where are they? Where are the dads?
Maybe they're ones driving.
Yeah. They're all drinking.
Drinking and driving.
Yeah. So the moms are so mad.
Right.
It's a circular reasoning here.
How did you get into comedy? Were you into it as a kid, or was that something...
I
assume you were the funny kid. A lot of.
Wait, do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 2 older sisters. They're I have 2 older and 1 younger. But my older sisters, we have the same mom, different dad. Yeah. My younger sister, we have the same dad, different mom. Mm-hmm. So my younger sister, not related to my older sisters.
Gotcha.
Right. Okay.
So, but I'm the only child of my parents.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Together.
Yeah.
So I was always funny growing up, funny in school, but I don't think I ever thought of comedy as a job that I could do. I mean, I would see it on TV, but I just assumed, well,
Who'd you
those
see?
are the people that are doing comedy.
Who would you see?
Well, Comedy Central Presents was really popular, so I would see, people that I even know now. It's really funny, but I remember seeing John Reap. I remember seeing Reno Collier. Reno lives here in Nashville now.
Yeah.
Talked to both of those guys.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember, and they're my friends now. But it's like I remember seeing them on TV being like, oh, man, this is great. A lot of, I can't think of a lot of 90s people, but, Chris Rock was popular at the time. I remember that HBO special, watching it. My dad was going through his third divorce, and there was a talk of alimony, and I remember Chris Rock had a nice alimony joke that I thought was fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeff Foxworthy, Jeff Foxworthy was probably the first comic that really felt like he was speaking to me in a way
Yeah.
that was like, I relate to this.
And he was huge back
Yes.
then. Huge. I think people have forgotten about him a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, nobody, the first two albums by Jeff Foxworthy, are still unbelievable. I mean, they're so good. And even like, I used to watch a lot of BET, Comic View. I really related to those comics too. I mean, people often don't think that would be the case, but it's like, poor people telling poor jokes is universal. You know what I
Right.
mean? So a lot of the Comic View people, that's what they would be talking about.
Yeah, that
You
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my sister, I think, talked my mom into, she was a bit older than me and was trying to look out for me, but talked him into removing MTV from the cable because Beavis and Butthead, everybody was worried that everybody was going to destroy society. So I didn't have MTV. So I missed all of that popular 90s MTV, which I think was good in the end. But so I watched BET.
Right.
And CMT.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't have MTV either. I had to go to my grandmother's to watch it because she
yeah.
had the full blown cable.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now what were what kind of music was your sister listening to? Were they watching
Well, I know
comedy?
they liked, they're 11 and 9 years older than me. So they liked all the 80s hair metal stuff.
Okay.
Poison. And I don't know if Poison was hair metal, but it was.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It was it? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And then she liked, Guns N' Roses and Rat and I don't even know all of them, but
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But
Okay.
then, they were also into country too. We were all into country.
You're going to be exposed to that in Alabama in especially the old country music.
Yes.
You're going to be around it, which
Yes.
is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, that was what it was all about. But, I often think of like that hair metal stuff. It's like, it feels like a lot of the trailer park women were really into that, And
Yeah.
so that was who my sisters were. So
Right.
it seems like, that's the only world I knew. So everybody could have been into it. But it just felt like, I remember my cousin, she had her room all decked out, Guns N' Roses, and there was like a picture of Axl Rose with a nipple pierced, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh man, this is wild.
It is funny that but not all, but a lot of chicks were into 80s hair metal. That was like the main draw. Kind of turned some of the dudes away because they got a little soft. There was always the power ballad on every album, whoever it was.
Oh, yeah.
But it was huge with the chicks, and it was all dudes dressed like chicks.
It's so wild that like Jelly Roll as a guy also in town, right? And he has
Yeah.
like face tattoos, and we see that, and that's not even weird. But back then, one nipple ring was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh gosh, what's happening?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Alternative.
Yeah.
And it's wild talking about, Jeff Foxworthy. He was, and I'm sure there were some before, but he seemed like the first Southern bent comedian that got really, there was Jerry Clower and all those guys,
Yeah.
but that seemed to be specifically, which I heard all the time because I'm from the South, but
Yeah.
people up north didn't quite get it. But for some reason, Foxworthy just bridged that gap, and even the people that weren't from the South could kind of get what he's like. Kind of like us listening to black dudes talking about the ghetto.
Right.
Same people, different surroundings, but you can kind of relate.
Oh yeah. Well, I think you're right. Jerry Clower I like a lot, but Jerry Clower is telling stories.
Right.
That specifically to him that you're like, well, maybe I can relate to that in some way. But Jeff Foxworthy is like speaking to people. I don't know. It just felt like all his words, like, words like "witcha did you," where he says, "You didn't bring your truck, witcha did you?" And it's like, you don't think of those as words, but when you hear him going, you're like, oh, that's exactly what we say.
Right.
We say that all the time. Yeah. And then there was like that one where he's like, when a bunch of dogs are in the yard, my dad would run out on the porch and go, "Get on out of here." And it's like, that's exactly the words I used.
Right.
How did he know that's exactly what I was saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, in the growing up where my dad lives, we'd ride bikes and 4-wheelers around on dirt roads and stuff like that. And you see all these people where Jeff Foxworthy is like, if your porch collapses and you'll kill 15 dogs, and you ride a bike by some house on a dirt road and you see 15 dogs come chase you from under the porch.
Yeah.
That's why I don't really like dogs now. I mean, I don't dislike them, but I'd rather not be around strangers' dogs.
Right.
Because they will bite you.
Yeah,
That's a pretty scary statement to say that you don't like dogs.
I know. People hate it.
Can you imagine getting canceled for that?
Yeah, you might.
Well, I don't dislike dogs, right? But I'm like, I don't want dogs to be hurt. But if I have my choice, if I got 2 friends to stay with, one of them has dogs, one of them doesn't. It's the dogless friend every time.
Right?
Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because you don't want to be bit by. Have you ever gotten bit?
Rubbed up against.
Shedded on.
Yeah, I've been bit. My dad used to have a bunch of hunting dogs. I had to go in there and feed them. A dog jumped up, clawed my face.
Oh.
I mean, I've been around with dogs.
Yeah.
I grew up with lots of dogs.
Yeah. What kind of farm was it?
He mainly has
was it a
cows,
working
Black
farm?
Angus. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll have some pigs once in a while, but it's mainly cows.
Okay. Did you go cow tipping? Sorry, I'm just
Never cow tipping, been chased by a bull. I've had to do some stuff with cows, get them into the catch pen to put some tags in their ear and some dewormer on there.
Did you ever get popped by the electric fence?
Yeah, I've been popped by electric fence.
Yeah, my uncle had a farm. I got stand up, you crawl under and stand up too quick and it just bowed. If you're really young, shocking.
I mean, we used to touch it, we would go run up and, touch it.
Yeah.
You can pee on it and a real shock.
So at what point did you, you say you were the funny kid. At what point did you think, oh, maybe this is something I want to try? Because it seems like a strange leap from where you come from.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Alabama, and then
Where in Alabama, by the way?
A town called Opelika.
Oh, yeah.
And right next to Auburn
I was about
University.
to say near Auburn, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I moved from there when I was 21 to Charleston, South Carolina. And I just moved with a buddy. We didn't really know what was going on. We just wanted to leave. I guess he went to some college. I didn't go to college. And we were just like, let's just get out of town. Let's just move somewhere else. So we moved to Charleston. We liked it. It's near the beach, small city. And then me and him got into a fight like instantly and then moved out from each other. We're still friends now, but it took a minute.
Right.
And so I'm suddenly in this new city with no friends. So I took an improv class just to, just kind of see what was happening. I thought, well, I'm funny. This will be fun. And then from there, I kind of got into stand-up.
Wow.
But I was also drinking a lot, so I was doing stand-up a little bit. It wouldn't go that well. I'd get real wasted and yell at people, stuff like that. So I quit doing comedy. I was like, all right, I don't like this.
What age is this roughly?
This is 21 to 23.
Prime drinking age.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the first time I did comedy, I wasn't drinking, and it went pretty well. But then after that, I started drinking while I was doing it, to calm the nerves. And then and then people yell at you and you're bombing and you take it personally and it just goes downhill fast.
Right.
So I just quit doing it. And then in 2008, when I'm probably like 26, 27, I don't know, I should know how old I would be in that age. Yeah, probably 26. I ventured back into it. I was still drinking, but I was doing better about not drinking on stage.
Right.
And then I started to get better, won a contest in 2011 locally, and then 2012 I quit drinking. And then I got way better at comedy, like real fast.
Was it just the performance or was it just the lifestyle of being able to write more or whatever, like lack of hangovers? How did it help? I
think it's all of those things. Yeah. But, for me, it's like I never was like a 2-beer kind of guy.
Right.
I'm always envious of people that can go out and have a couple of beers. Like I had friends like that. We would go out, they would have a couple of beers, they would take off. I'd hang out all night, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they always say you're like, either you throw up or you black out. And I was always blackout guy. Sometimes I would throw up, but I was mainly blackout guy. Mm-hmm. I like to say I'm the kind of drinker that at some point in the night, you can make eye contact with me and know that I can't see you.
Right. I got a buddy like that.
Yeah.
So were you a good drunk though? Were you like one of those sloppy violent or did everybody like, no, he's fine? Because I have a friend just like you're talking about, he doesn't drink anymore, but he would get a look in his eye and you just look at him and go, yep, he's blacked out right now. But he'd just sit there grinning, didn't really say anything, didn't throw up, didn't do anything. So he was a it was tough to lose him for the drinkers, but
I guess it depends on who you were, because I had friends that were like me, and it was a blast.
Right.
With the two or three of us, I mean, we could do whatever. We couldn't embarrass each other. We would get kicked out of a bar and laugh our way to the next one, and it didn't matter. But other people who had, standards and things that, they were like, oh, take it easy,
the petty morals and such.
Yeah.
Was beer your drink?
I always liked beer, but I feel like it would, you drink so many beers and it feels like the beer's not working the way you want it to anymore, and then you switch to shots and liquor, and then that's when it goes downhill. But I mean, I had a blast. I mean, I love doing it, but at some point my body was just hurting. I was smoking a lot of cigarettes all the time.
Yeah.
Like I could not control the cigarettes when I was drinking.
Yeah.
So I'd wake up and I'm like, my whole chest hurts. And then I'm hungover, and I'm like, well, I gotta go to work again.
Right.
You know. And then I'm at work going, I'm never doing this again. And then by the time I'm off work, I'm like, well, let's do it again. Let's get into it.
There you go.
Let's have a good time.
So you're still in South Carolina, right? Doing open mics. Did you tour around at that point? When did you first branch out from there?
I never really went anywhere to do comedy. It was mainly Charleston is this it used to be, at least. I don't know what it's like now. I've been gone for a while, but it was this weird kind of unique island almost, where it's like when you're in Charleston, the local community is very supportive, and so it's like you can. Like I was almost like locally famous in Charleston for doing comedy, and I would MC different events, and you can really get around in that way. So it was like this fun, like artsy community.
And it is very artsy. We played there, and it's almost like a mellower New Orleans by the ocean or something.
Yeah,
it's very cool, and the architecture and shit. It's very cool down there.
Yeah, where did you play?
Charleston Poorhouse.
Yeah, I've done that one too. Yeah, the Poorhouse is great.
Yep.
Driving and Crying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've done the Poorhouse quite a few times. But so it's like it's this fun community, and so in about 2013, I was I'd already quit drinking, and I was kind of like looking to move somewhere. So I had a friend that moved to New York City, and he had a room come open in his apartment, and I didn't want to move there, but I was like, could I pay you 1 month's rent and just come stay with you for a month?
Check it out.
So that's what I did. And then I wanted to hit an open mic. I wanted to do at least one mic open every day for 30 days. That was my goal, which for somebody that lives in New York doing comedy, that's nothing. But for me at the time, I mean, an open mic every day was unheard of.
Sure.
I could get on stage maybe twice a week in Charleston. And I ended up doing like 47 open mics in 30 days in New York City, and it was great. I loved it. That's where I met my wife now.
Oh, cool.
She's from Canada. She was down doing comedy in New York, and we ended up meeting then.
Fun.
But I ultimately decided not to move to New York and to move to Nashville, because I met a comic in New York who started in Nashville, and he told me that it's very centrally located here.
Bingo.
So you can get to all these other cities by driving, and that all have clubs. So I was like, and kind of the advice was like, this way you can learn to be a better comic while being a comic.
Right.
As opposed to if I moved to New York City, I got to get a job to pay my rent. And so I moved here in 2014, and in 6 months, I was like, all right, I quit my job, and I was like, I'm going to go full time. I found I bet you can't find this deal now, but I found an attic apartment on the west side of Nashville for $250 a month.
Wow.
And
I live on the west side. You can't even get close there now.
Yeah.
I've been there for 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't afford to live there now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great. And so I had, I'd paid my car off.
Not as much traffic back then.
Yeah, it was
People
amazing.
don't understand what it was like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, even 2014 was like, I think this was the beginning, too,
right. You can start seeing people coming in.
But it was like, so I was able to work the road without really making any money and just survive. And so that's going full time was my first time really working the road. Now I went around a little bit. I would book myself on these open mics in clubs and just, try to get myself in front of the clubs.
Right.
And, because you can do the bar shows and make money, but with clubs, it's like they book every year. So you want to get in with the club, and then you're like, if I could secure a weekend every year and then fill my calendar that way.
Right.
It's like getting on that festival circuit as a
Yes.
musician. Every year you can count on these 5 dates that are going to come through to be
Yes.
good.
Yeah, so it's like, so that's what I've been doing since then.
Now, did your girlfriend, wife now at the time, move here with you the first time, or did she come later?
No, we actually didn't even, we kind of left, and we didn't even really talk much for a while, for a couple of years. And then in between that time, I moved to Nashville, and then I started working the road. And then I had a gig up in Syracuse, New York, and then over in Michigan. So I had never been to Canada, and I was just kind of looking at the map, and there was a way to cut through Canada to get to this part of Michigan.
All right.
And then Toronto was, a little out of the way, but I thought, if this girl would see me, I would make the drive up to Toronto. So she said we could get together if I came up there. And so we went, we hung out, and then I got her to leave with me then.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Must have been a pretty good date.
Well, I knew we had a good time in New York, but I think sometimes it's the out of sight, out of mind thing that you don't think about. So
Right.
I thought we had a connection. So
Yeah.
I was like, let's see what happens.
So she took the leap and came to Nashville.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, she did comedy and acting, and I don't think, so she didn't have a day job. So she was like, yeah, I'll go.
Does she still do comedy?
She did for a while, but she quit about 2 years ago.
Okay.
I mean, she was good at it. I mean, she was doing zanies and stuff too,
Yeah.
but she was, she just got tired of it.
Okay. And now she's a mom?
Now she's a mom. Yeah, we got a 16-month-old baby. And
Yeah.
Congrats,
yeah,
man.
that's exciting.
You didn't have this baby the first time we were trying to get you on. This is right around the pandemic, and our
yeah.
schedules kept.
Yeah, there was, I mean,
That was a wild time
But
back then.
yeah, she was pregnant at the time. Did
Okay.
you guys have a dolphin assisted birth?
I don't.
Have you heard of these?
No, I don't. Yeah. I was
Wait,
like-
what?
I was
Yes.
thinking, I was like, I don't know if we did that or not, but I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a new thing where women are giving birth in water with dolphins because apparently the frequencies they give off in the water makes the baby brilliant and smart and better life.
Okay, well, they're going to have to
No,
wait
it's
for
true.
18 years for the studies to be conclusive. These babies, how do they know they're brilliant? How long
maybe
have they been
did.
pregnant?
Maybe they started doing it 25 years ago.
Well,
I don't know.
maybe the kind of parents that can provide the dolphin birth provide a better education all growing up.
That's a
Because
good
they all
valid
because
point.
they went to private school
Yeah.
after they got
Valid point.
Well played. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Rich hippies.
Yeah.
So no dolphin assisted birth, I assume.
No. I mean, who knows, I mean, the career's going up. Maybe by the time I have
Yeah.
the next baby, we're dolphin assisted.
There you go. So when you're hitting the road out of Nashville, is it like a band? Like, all right, I'm starting out. Do you just start blindly emailing clubs, or I guess you have a reel, or I don't know what you call it, or just audio that you send? How does that
Well,
work?
now I'm in a great place. Now I have, a manager and an
Of course,
agent,
now.
and they've really have made that easier than I could ever imagine.
But I started in a band, and I know you
Right.
started as a comedian. I want to know what it was like when.
But
just
yeah, I mean,
you.
it's like, and I talk to comedians about this all the time because this is the hardest thing to do, really. Not like physically hard, but like your ego to handle. You'll slowly build an email list where you're finding, all right, this person books this club, this person books this club, and then you sit down and you write this email. And I'll say what I send, but you send this email, and then you think, all right, I sent 10 emails today. I'm gonna get something, and then no one responds. And then I always say email every month, but people will do it one time. And then when they get no responses, their feelings are hurt. They're like, "Oh, this
Screw that
doesn't
guy."
work."
Yeah.
Or they'll maybe make it to 2 times. But I would email some clubs, for 8 months before ever getting a response. Some I never got a response from. But you'd email someone every month for 8 months, and then they go, "Hey, I need someone this weekend. Can you come?" And it's like, if you can, boom, it's worked out, And it's
Yeah.
like. But people, they don't have the stamina for it,
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I would send an email. I would just say, I would give them a compliment. I would not make it up, but, it's like one of those things where you can always give someone a compliment and not be fake.
Yeah.
So I would,
Yep.
I would say, hey, I've always wanted to come to your club. I really like your city. And then I would describe my comedy and then list some other clubs I've worked, some other people I worked with. And then I would send a really short video, like 2 minutes of me just being funny. And then a video long enough for the time I'm asking. Like if I'm trying to feature, you want to send at least a 30-minute video.
Right.
So the short video, because you know, if it's a longer video, there may be a second where I'm coming on stage before I get into the jokes. But with the short one, I'm like, I want you to see that I can be funny and then watch the longer one. That was my plan.
That makes sense.
Right.
Tease them a little bit. And
Yeah.
if they like it, but a lot of times, especially now, if somebody sees a 30-minute video, they're probably like, ugh,
Exactly.
got time for
Yes.
that.
No, nobody's got time for 30
So
minutes.
my idea was like, you see me be funny, and then you also see that I can do 30 minutes.
Right,
So
right.
maybe you don't watch the longer one, but you know that I can do it. And also, this was my other method, was to find the email that I sent them last month and then like reply to that one.
We've done that before.
Yeah, and then not say I'm emailing you again, but if we did this 8 months, they could look back and see that I've emailed them 8 times over 8 months and never been rude. Because
Yeah.
that's another thing comics do, and it's hard. You know, you go, oh, you get entitled almost to where you're like, oh, you won't even respond to my emails, and you know, it's hard not to do that sometimes. But
Right.
Yeah, and I can see it from both sides though, because if you being a club owner would suck. I can't
Oh, yeah.
imagine anybody that wants to get music or comedy just having to fill it up and deal with talent coming through.
Right.
Like, who wants that hassle?
because what comic and what band is not the best to themselves?
Of course.
right? So everybody,
all
nobody's like, hey, we're a band, we're okay. You know, we're not going to sell any tickets, but we'll come in.
Right.
You know, we'll do it. We'll let her drink in there. They won't leave.
Yeah, we'll give them something to look at anyway while they're drinking.
Yeah.
I like this. This is actually pretty good.
Yeah. But I used, and I wouldn't even try to be funny in the email. But then at the end, when I would sign off, I would say, Dusty Slay, hilarious comedian. That was my little joke at the end.
Yeah, that's good.
Just to, because I just feel like if the email's all jokey, how many emails do the club owners get that are all jokey? I bet a lot.
Right. Of course, they're trying to be funny. Yeah, yeah.
Got to get them right off the bat. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine.
And a rule that I have is if they don't respond and say no, then just keep. Unless they
Oh, yeah.
say no, then keep emailing.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I emailed at one point I was doing it every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I told a guy one time, I was like, I can email more often if if that helps. He goes, but he didn't say don't. He just said, no, this is fine.
That's funny
He
too.
didn't say stop emailing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And probably some people appreciate the gusto, the go
Yeah,
get them
the want
aspect,
to.
Well, that's what I think,
The
right? Is
drive.
it like over time, if a booker is like, now you're in their brain because they're seeing
Yep.
you every month.
Yep.
So when they have a fallout or something, then they call on you. And if you can
Yeah.
do it,
And then you doing them a favor too.
Right.
So you get up there and they put you on like, all right, if I can count on this guy,
yes.
and you get on that list.
Then you're
Right.
best friends.
And we've learned
Yeah.
as a band and I mean, we'd have to work at it because we know the other side. But when you work with the production staff, whoever's working at the club, from the bartenders to the sound guy, you make their job very, very easy, and they will ask you back, or they'll keep you in their mind. Go,
Oh, yeah.
bring them back because I had fun with them, and it was a great night and easy to work with.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought about that stuff too. I tried everything. Stuff like, I don't drink, so I'm not going to be causing problems in the club. I'm married. I have a girlfriend.
Right.
I'm not going to be hitting on the staff.
Yeah.
Just any kind of thing. To be like...
Reasons to hire me.
Yeah, I'm dependable. I'll be on time.
Yeah.
Dusty Slade, dependable comic.
Right, exactly. And that's, and then you want to send, I would always send updated tapes too. It's like, sometimes people now will send me videos to do my show, and the video will be from 8 years ago. I'm like, well, what have you been doing lately?
Sure.
Right.
Was your best video 8 years ago?
Yeah.
Even if you got to delete it.
I was
from
just about to
YouTube-
say, couldn't you just pull it down and re-upload it if you're going to go that route?
Exactly.
Then you'd lose the views.
Clearly, they want a lot if you're still reaching out trying to, you're not
Yeah,
losing
yeah.
millions of views on that.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
true.
always curious when you're coming up, there seems to be a thread running through all comics that there's somebody in a class above them or just 5 years their senior, they'll sort of take them under their wing or take them out on the road or teach them. Did you have anybody in particular that you learned a lot of stuff from?
Well, it's hard because, it's like, I feel like with comedy, everybody that really happens for, they're like living in New York or Chicago or LA. There wasn't a ton of like touring comics out of Nashville.
That's true.
There was a guy, Chris Killian, that was here in Nashville, that he was doing like comedy zone gigs, and he took me on the road early on. In 2015, he took me, and these were not great gigs, but I think they helped me more than anything because they were like, I don't know. I just think you learn. Like I was in such this nice, insulated, artsy community in Charleston where I had all these fun, quirky jokes, and then you're working the road in front of real people, and they're not into that.
That built-in respect is gone when you walk through the door. Who's this guy? You got to start all over.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm doing a club in Johnson City, Tennessee, with about 10 people in the audience, bombing the whole time, getting heckled, watching the owner back out of the club to not even deal with the hecklers. Right. And then I see them after the show, this grown couple tripping over the trash can. They're so drunk, they're falling in the parking lot. You know, it's like figuring out how to make them laugh is like, it really makes you a much stronger comic.
Yeah, and you want to get good at that so you're not having a miserable time every time you're playing in front of 10 people, you know? Because we played our share of gigs for nobody.
Yeah.
And eventually you're like, well, I'm here and there's 4 people here. Let's all have a good time while we're doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I imagine music is hard too like that. I mean, I think I saw a guy at, I think 3rd and Lindsley the other night. And they, you know, and I'm not really a dancer, but the way it was set up, they were all tables, you know?
Yeah.
And they were really jamming. But we're all just sitting there at the tables watching them.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm not going to start the dance. But it just seems like they really want us to like be into it. And we're all just like, oh yeah, great song. And it was good.
Sure.
But it's like, you know, so I imagine that's hard. If
It's
you're like
so
really,
Nashville. It's just so Nashville.
But to your point, we've played all kinds of different gigs, but there's some where it's just packed with people that are after every song. But the seated gigs that there's, you know, a benefit or something where people are actually supposed to sit, you almost feel like you're bombing the whole time. You play, and then everybody gets done and they applaud, but then it just gets very quiet until the next song happens, where usually it's the drunks milling around. They're, you know, if you're
They're
standing.
finally able to talk to each other because the band's shut up, so you can kind of hear.
But
things.
at these
we
seated
played
gigs,
a place called I don't remember what it was called, but it was Coach House maybe in Capistrano, California or
San
something.
Juan Capistrano.
That's what it was. And it was these long cafeteria tables from the stage. And there were probably 10 of them. Sat like 50 people on each one.
It's an ancient club that's been around forever, and they serve really, really good like steak dinners and all this, but they have, you know, Ted Nugent's played there.
Oh, yeah.
But it's sort of, you play while they're
it's a famous place, but these people are sitting down, not even looking at the stage.
Like the stage was there. They're all looking this way.
And they're eating while you're playing a rock show, you know, and it's like
I just remember one
strange.
probably 80-year-old woman. It was just, her face was just staring at my guitar amp, but she was just sitting there eating her steak and smiling. I was like, she's
And they
probably the first
clap.
thing she's heard in a long time, because she's gonna hear it. You know?
Oh, yeah.
She probably got to turn the hearing aid off for that time.
Yeah.
But you'd get done and they'd clap and you'd hear the clink, 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 clink. And I'm like, man, this is bizarre.
This is weird. Yeah. It's weird. Some of them are weird.
Yeah, I mean, I did a corporate show in Huntsville one time at a hotel. This was way back. Now, thankfully, you know, with a team, I am getting better corporate gigs.
Yeah.
Yes.
They can still be awkward, but this one,
They always pay well.
yes. I mean, but this one, like, I guess the booker, the whoever was booking us from that company didn't tell them that they were booking comedy. So this was surprise comedy. They were at meetings, so they're listening to people talk all day. And then their lunch break, they have comedians. So these people are not interested in hearing anyone else talk. And this is not the long conference tables. This is big round conference tables with people with their backs to you.
Oh.
And then as they're finishing their food, they're leaving. I'm still on stage.
Oh.
And they're not even a stage. I'm on the floor.
Right.
And they're just leaving. And it's like, it became funny to me that the whole place cleared except the guy paying me and then the people cleaning up. And I was like, I'm doing my time.
Yeah.
You paid me to do 30 minutes. I'm doing 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those things where you just like got to laugh at yourself about it because you can't take it that seriously because
Yes.
it really was nothing I could do.
And you can't get mad at the people leaving. You're like, shit, they've been listening to people talk all day. And plus, I can't get mad if we're playing and somebody hates our band. It's like, there's a lot of music.
Dropping like
people
flies.
walk out on you. It's like, oh, okay. You know, yes, they don't like
I
us.
wouldn't say if I didn't like it either.
No, exactly.
It's still hard. Like I was doing a show just on Sunday and it was going so great. The place was packed and then just 2 people up front left And I don't know why they left. Somebody told me later that one of them was super drunk and they were like fighting, and so they left. But it's like still just seeing people leave.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa.
It's just
Take it
two people
personally.
too. Out of all those people that stayed,
Right,
just the
right.
two people leave. You're
Yes.
like, what
Yeah.
It's like, what could I have done?
Right.
I mean, the audience was loving the show.
Or the person who's staring at their phone,
Oh, yeah.
which I know they close up the phones at Zany's a lot, so that's kind of
Yeah.
nice. But when you're playing a show and you look out and you just see a glow on
Yeah.
someone's face, and they're like, and you're like,
Yeah.
come on.
There's a club in Birmingham, Alabama that it's called the Stardome, and they at least the shows I used to do would be weekday shows, and they would they give away free tickets, so no one's invested.
Right.
And it'd be 400 people in the room, and probably 2 people bought tickets.
Sure.
And so about halfway through the show, I mean, when people are starting to get bored, you see cell phones all over the place,
Just start lighting up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, because it's you're here and there's a little bit of a floor, but then the seats just go up. So like the top
just
row
a
is
wall of-
yes, just a wall of cell phones.
See, and you guys have to sit there and take it with no. I mean, we can just turn up or whatever, play for each other, whatever.
Yeah.
You guys have to just sit there with nothing and deal with that stuff.
Yeah. And see, I'm up there saying we're having a good time, and that is. But if it starts to not be a good time, I can't start yelling at people because now that we're having a good time, guys, breaking down.
Hey, fuckers, we're having a good time.
Yes.
Are you listening to me?
Do you ever say, this isn't a good time? We're
No,
not having a good time?
Sometimes I'll go, we're having a good time, and then I'll go, are we?
I love I love that bit that you do where you say, oh, we're having a good time. So when we do little jokes in between our songs and stuff, and so we started saying, did we cheers yet? Just so that we could cheers, and we just started doing that over and over again. So when
yeah.
I saw you and I saw that bit, I thought it was hilarious. I was like, it's
Yeah.
kind of like our did we
We both
cheers
because
yet?
we saw you
With
open
Josh
for
Wolf.
Josh Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
and it's a long because we had just had Josh on. It's like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
whatever,
a couple
like
years ago now.
Second or third person we even talked to.
Oh, yeah.
So he came down here, but he mentioned he was doing his. Was it Sunday night? I can't remember. Anyway, when he had the young comic where he'd come up and do
yeah.
a bit and then rewrite stuff and do it. But we
Those
saw
were
one of those.
fun, wild shows.
Yeah.
Too wild for me almost. Like, I've done a few of those. Sometimes it goes great. Other times it's like, I feel like the audience is so geared up for this thing that Josh Wolf does. And he would have musicians on. I
Yep.
mean, it would be a wild show where it was
Yeah.
like, I was pretty tame for that show.
Yeah.
But we
that's
caught a
where
good
we
one
saw
because
you.
we loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I always liked it. I like doing it. I'm sad that Josh Wolf left, actually. I liked what he
and
was
they didn't
doing.
tell anybody. They didn't tell anybody. They just left. It's
Yeah.
like, bam. So have you ever, besides those shows, have you ever opened for musicians?
I opened for Alabama at in a Des Moines, or not Des Moines, Iowa, somewhere in Iowa, Cedar Rapids, something like that, at a big like I don't know, what do you call them? I don't even do them enough, like a arena.
Right.
And
Is that the first one you've done opening for?
An
for
arena?
a band like that,
Yeah.
I liked it, but it was it was a little I don't know, it's too big to me for
Yeah.
comedy. I think that if you reach that status as a comedian, I think at that point you're like, I'm just going to make tons of money.
Right.
I'm just going to rake in money. But for the connection of comedy and just having fun, I think it's too big.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take it if it's selling out. I mean, I
Sure.
could use a nice paycheck like that, but
Yeah.
it's like it's too much. Like,
But can you do a theater for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
instead of a, one
think
big
so.
night?
Yeah.
It's so
have a
much.
few-
And there's probably
you
certain
still make the money, right?
Probably certain comedians. 'Cause I remember seeing Eddie Murphy back in the day at Starwood, and it was a shed, the big outdoor amphitheater. I don't know if he enjoyed it, but he pulled it off. But it was Eddie Murphy. It was like
right.
Yeah.
Andrew Dice Clay, these huge personalities that can
Yes.
project to the grass to the people.
Yes.
and it's very certain. That's probably how. And most comedians that we've talked to or you hear talking don't like to do anything beyond like 2,000 seaters is
Yeah,
huge
it's too
because
big.
the laughs get lost. They like
Yeah.
everything coming in and just.
Yeah.
Tight.
Now I did this one might have been a year ago, a couple years ago. I did the Charlie Daniels Volunteer Jam.
Oh yeah, that's been going on since I was
and
a
it
kid.
was the one after he had passed.
Right.
So like they I guess probably 2021. They canceled 2020,
Yeah.
and I thought it was going to be terrible because there was some agents there. I wasn't even sure if they were on my agency, but we were talking, and I was just prepping them for the bomb that was about to happen because I was like, this is all musicians. I was the only comedy on this whole lineup. I'm following Big and Rich doing Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy in Nashville at the Bridgestone Arena. I'm like, this is good. And then Stormy Warren was emceeing, and I've done his show a few times, and I've gotten to know him pretty well. And he gave me this really great intro, and then the whole audience just sat down, and I had a great set. So I don't know. I think it's all about the setting, like, because that's also an arena. But I did 10 minutes. And I don't know. I just think 10 minutes in there was like electric. It felt great. If I'm doing an hour, I don't know where we're going.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it also takes any element of crowd work or working the crowd completely out of it. Because you're a person in the front row says something, the 30,000th person in the back has no idea what's going on.
And they were saying things.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Because everybody does, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially in that environment.
Yeah. But I do the Opry, I
was about to ask, how is doing the Opry? Because that's got, to be honest, all those old, we've talked about it all the time, but your grandpa, all that class, and back then, they were all funny and did bits in between songs. They were, Minnie Pearl, humor has always been a part of country music, I think, more so than any of it.
It's so great there because sometimes I'll follow very serious, singers.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's nice to come out with like jokes right after.
Right.
The only person I feel like I had a hard time following was Neil McCoy, and he's out in the audience. I mean, half his act feels like a comedy show. And then now I'm like supposed to be the comic, and it almost feels boring what I'm doing.
I got jokes, but I don't have the music to go along with it.
Exactly. But I've done it a bunch of times now, and it's I think I love it. I think it's a lot of fun. I'm doing it, a couple of times this weekend. And,
nice.
Good.
And I do some country music jokes. I have a full breakdown of the song "It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere" that I put on YouTube about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I just try to look at the character in that song and what's this guy really like? He's saying. It's like he's having a hard day at work, but if you really listen to it, it's like he's the problem. You know what I mean? This guy's an alcoholic. You know what I mean? So I broke that down, and then Jim Moose Brown that wrote the song ended up coming to Zany's and seeing me after
Love
that.
Moose.
We've recorded in his studio before.
Yeah.
Okay,
His
he
son,
came.
Jeremy.
Very nice guy. And I met Jamie Johnson at the Opry.
Yeah, Jamie's great.
And he told me, I did a short version of that, and he was like, "Oh, I know Jim Moose Brown." He sent it to him, and so I don't know.
I'm sure Moose loved it because
He's a funny dude anyway.
Yeah, he seemed to really like it. And then I was supposed to, just staying with the opening for music, I was supposed to open for Trace Adkins at a fair, and then it stormed. So I just sat on the tour bus and talked to Trace Adkins about country music, and
that's cool.
one of his wives shot him in the chest apparently, and I was like, it's pretty intense.
It's not a bad way to spend a storm.
Yeah, but like one of his first wives apparently shot him in the side, and the bullet went all the way through his torso, like through his lungs and his heart, and he almost died.
Wow, I haven't heard that story.
Yeah.
I haven't either.
I don't even know. I mean, I think it's out there. I don't think it was a secret.
Maybe we broke it. That would be fantastic. Trace Adkins pissed off somewhere.
Why did she shoot? Why she
I guess they were getting divorced, and they were just fighting, and
she just loved him too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, it was something like she came at him with a gun or something, and I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay. Have you ever been confused for my Uncle Lucas? Because you kind of look like him.
People in Chicago actually told me I looked like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
At least that's the first thing we said when you came up at
Luke.
I was like,
oh yeah,
looks like Luke kind of. Or was it just me, or does he look like Luke?
Yeah.
Yeah. People have told me that. Yeah, and then I would listen to a couple of his albums after that. It's great stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's like rock and roll church. I like his music. Now, have you ever thought of writing songs or?
Oh,
singing?
well, I've thought about it. I mean, I love music,
Okay.
right? But it's like I took guitar in high school, and I was not very good at it. Now, part of it is that I think I lack the drive to really practice something. That's what's great about comedy is I practice on stage. So I'm like getting better while I'm also getting feedback. But playing guitar, you sit in a room and you gotta learn, and it hurts your finger. I always feel so weak saying it.
It does.
My fingers hurt.
It does hurt when you're first starting. It's hard to even start. It's like it's just your pinky finger won't push down.
Yeah.
You got to push through.
And then so I took guitar in high school, and then I was so bad, but they would need people to do certain things in the class so we could play. So they would always need someone to sing, and no one wanted to do it. And I always wanted to do it. I can't sing, but I always wanted. So they would let me do that.
That's impressive. It's tough to throw yourself out there to sing. You're pretty vulnerable in high school to be able to do that, ready for people to just dive in and crush you.
Yeah. So I told the final exam was some, I don't know, hard song, Green Leaves or something like that. It was a lot of, and I was like, I asked the teacher, could I just write my own song for the final? And he was like, yeah, if you'll play it for the class. And so I wrote some song with the G, C, and E minor chord and sang this song. And
you've written about half of the country songs around now.
All you need is 3 chords.
Yeah. And then I passed with a C, and
Okay.
I didn't ace it. But he was like,
do you still remember the song?
I got it written down somewhere. Yeah.
Maybe you should record that and put it out as a single.
Record it. Yeah. I mean, I would like to. I mean, I think about it sometimes. It's like, with my agency, like they're also in Nashville, right? Like all my agents are in LA, but it's like they have representation in Nashville. So I always thought about that. Like if I could write a song, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I hear that songwriters make a lot of money. Other times I hear they don't.
Well, it depends on which songwriter you talk to.
Yeah.
Very few of them do.
Yeah, I'm sure Jim Moose Brown.
He did all right with.
What do you win? A Grammy.
Grammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It only takes
His
one.
recording studio is literally every inch of it is some sort of "It's 5 o'clock somewhere" memorabilia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It looks like Cracker Barrel, but just 5 o'clock.
That's great.
somewhere.
Oh yeah. He told me a funny story. He said he wrote that, and then he also helped Jamie Johnson on the album In Color.
Yeah.
And he said it was up for a Grammy and then didn't win. And he said, to Jamie, he's like, well, sorry about that. And then Jamie Johnson was like, well, I guess it just lacks the lyrical integrity in 5 o'clock.
Now, to be fair, Jamie Johnson was a co-writer on Honky Tonk Badonkadonk, so you can't go. But yeah, Jamie's great.
Yeah.
Do you ever listen to your set after, or do you just kind of...
I used to listen to it a lot. I still record all my sets.
Yeah.
I mean, mainly now I'll go back a few months later and try to watch a bunch of them and just find clips that I can share on the internet. Just kind of riffs. So a lot of my, if you watch a lot of my riffs or a lot of my clips on the internet are not like my best stuff. It's just things that happened because I'm not trying to burn up all my jokes.
Right.
Yeah. Once a joke is out there, then I'll share it. But I'm not trying to burn all my good jokes.
Yeah, I get it.
So, if it's a little riff, I think there's a lot of almost like crowd work farming people are doing now, where at the end of the show, they'll kind of take questions just so they can get a crowd work thing for the internet. I don't like that. Whatever people do is fine with me, but I don't like it.
That seems to be a relatively new thing, but I've noticed that comedians have gone to just putting 2-minute clips or a minute clips out, with the narration or whatever underneath. I guess they're going back and like you're doing and mining old stuff. But as a young comedian, if you didn't have a bunch of stuff, it seems like you're really shooting yourself in the foot if you're putting out all your good 2-minute clips and getting them out there for people to see, and then you go to their town and maybe they think it's funny or something. I don't know. It's a weird. Depending on comedians, some people like to hear the old shit, Right. Andrew Dice Clay would go out and do stuff and people would just shout the punchlines back.
Yeah.
But some comedians you go see and I've already heard this stuff
Right.
before.
It's like they think that you don't, because people will say that to me after the show. They'll go, oh, I wanted you to do the 5 o'clock somewhere, because I just put it out. They'll say, I wanted you to do the 5 o'clock somewhere joke. And I'm like, well, I feel like if I put that out on the internet and then you come see me and I'm doing it, then you're going to think I don't have any jokes. That's all I got. Whereas music, it's like if you put out,
they don't want to hear the new stuff.
Right. If you, so that's when people go to the bathroom. A new song,
Right.
I always think about that. Like it's like musicians that have made a bunch of money off a hit. They're like, they have to play that forever.
Yeah.
Do you play it every time and go, this is great? Or you're like, here we go again. Like there's a video out there of Kenny Rogers singing Lucille. And at the end, he kind of goes, Lucille. Like he does it in a way like.
Yeah, I guess it depends. I've heard famous people talk about that, and it really just depends on who you're talking. Some people are like, God, I have to do it. I don't ever want to do it, but I've got to. So, and some people are like, hey, man, this song is what put me on the map. I'll sing it anytime, anywhere, anybody wants to hear it.
Yeah.
But
That's
I think
kind
I
of
might.
my grandpa's way of looking at it.
Yeah, I'd
Like,
probably
I'll do
lean
it.
more towards the former, though. If you had to play some song, you just after 25 years, like, I got to play American Pie again. I don't want to play that song. It's 13 minutes long, but you got to.
Like, if it's like Whiskey River, that's a fun tune.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, we can all get into this. We could probably even improv some lyrics and have a good time. But yeah, American Pie, a really long thing where you're like, oh, here we go. Like I got some short jokes that I don't mind doing forever. But like a longer bit, you're like in it.
Yeah.
And if you feel the audience is not with you, then you're like, I got to bail on this. But how do I bail on this long bit?
Right.
You got to get to that that punchline.
Because if you bail and they know you bailed, the whole energy of the show tanks.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be mid-song and be like, you know what, forget it. Next song.
This is sucking. Anyway,
I mean, I guess you could do a medley, right?
Yeah, just season.
Kind of play into the next.
Yeah, and it's always funny how it's the opposite of, musicians spend a year writing an album, put out the record, and go out and do that stuff for everybody. And comics spend a year writing their stuff, put it out on a special, and then they can't go out and do it. It's done.
Right.
It's burnt, So they got to start all over. And musicians are just getting started. Hopefully they get 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 years out of that 1 hour.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, like when I opened for Alabama, I mean, this was, my understanding was it was their last tour, but I think they still did more. But, Randy Owen, I mean, you could see he's, an older man now.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw him sing a song, and then my angle, he kind of turned around back to the band and like took a breath, like he was like, but he brings this kid up on stage. He asks the kid, what song would you like me to play? And he says, Roll On Highway, the 18-wheeler song. And he was like, that's the hardest song for me to sing.
And as a singer, you get older, man. It's not like you can just keep pumping iron and stay strong. Your voice is going to go eventually. There's just no...
I mean, he did it, but I'm like, it is like a lot going on in that song.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
My grandpa's been sitting down in his shows lately this year since... That makes me sad a little.
I don't know why he hadn't been... It's not like he was running
know.
around high-fiving and pyro going off anyway.
Yeah.
It's a good look for him.
Yeah.
I think it looks cool.
It's different than what he's ever done.
Yeah.
He's in his 90s, right?
He's 89.
89, yeah.
Yeah, so
okay.
almost.
Yeah.
So he made it to 89 before he decided to use a stool. That's pretty good work.
Yeah, and it took a pandemic of not touring for a while for that to happen. Because before the pandemic, he didn't. He stood up,
That's true. And plus all those shows. He plays
and he still does them,
billions
a
of
lot
shows a year. Yeah,
you were telling me he's got a book coming out.
Yeah, I mean,
Today,
I was
I
listening.
think?
Yeah, I listened to Sirius XM. I listened to Willie's Roadhouse a lot. And they were talking today. Said he has a new book come out today.
Yeah.
And then he's doing Central Park with Charlie Crockett, which is why
you
wore
have
my
a
Charlie
shirt.
Crockett
There you
shirt.
go.
And then doing Farm Aid in North Carolina later in the week.
Now, since we're here, what's the first time you remember hearing about my grandpa? Probably the radio when you were listening with your mom and dad, but when you remember hearing Willie Nelson, or it's okay if you don't remember.
I mean, probably like Redheaded Stranger. I mean, my dad loves Westerns. Mm-hmm. So that's probably the first time.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a good one.
I mean, he has In the Time of the Preacher as a song off that album that I really like now. I got into Leon Russell a bit, and they have an album together that I really like. It's one of my favorites. He has a song on there called Someone Like You, I think. Or, he just really like, I don't know. I always think Willie Nelson has these he's got these like good jams, but once in a while you find that song where he's like really singing.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing.
Yeah.
You're
right.
I mean, I got into jazz a little bit. He had the album with Wynton Marsalis that I liked. Two Men Sing the Blues. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that Leon Russell Willie Nelson album, I forget what it's called, but it's
I do too, but it's a great record.
They sing the Elvis song. I don't know why I can't think of any names.
You're Always on My Mind song?
No, that album is great too. Blue Skies Crying in the Rain. Is that the album? You're Always on My Mind. That was a really good one.
Yeah, I don't remember the Elvis song.
No,
They did. Don't. Let's just start naming
Jamie,
Elvis songs.
you look it up for us?
Okay. I've been here the whole time, and I think there's a guy over there. But it's great. I mean, that is, my buddy. I was going to try to read. I'm not much of a reader. My buddy gave me a Willie Nelson book a long time ago, and
Which one?
it's a book. It starts. I don't know. It starts with he says, they say the first line in a book is always the hardest to write.
Oh yeah.
There. Glad that's over.
Yeah.
He's a funny dude.
He is so funny.
Before you get out of here, because we're running out of time, let's talk about your Netflix special. Like, what goes into that and making one of those? What, do you start going, I want to make a special, and you go film it and then you pitch it, and where do you figure out where to do it? What all goes into that?
Well, this one, I mean, I think was definitely my management getting this for me. But it's like, I also put in the work by being in front of people in festivals, and I did Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in 2018, and it's like you're in front of all of the comedy industry in the country, maybe the world. I mean, it's one of the biggest festivals, and it's like if you nail it there, then everyone has seen you and what you can do. And it's like with comedy, it's like I could do this set today and it just murder, and then I could do it tomorrow and everyone hate it. But on that night, it crushed, right? And I had this, and it was like really good for me. So that's 2018 is when things started to really take off. I had done Jimmy Kimmel earlier in the year, and then did Just for Laughs, and then halfway through I did the Tonight Show, and then it's like things have really started to take off since then. But doing the Netflix, it's like, you first you got to figure out what you want to do, and then you got to, and I decided that there was a bunch of jokes that I already wasn't really doing on stage anymore, but they were jokes that I really liked. Like all these trailer park jokes that I wrote and liked that had never really got exposed to the world. I was like, I want people to see these. Mm-hmm. So I brought these back. I start doing these in the clubs again. So you gotta refresh yourself, get yourself used to doing them again. And then, then you're like figuring out all your transitions, and then you tape that and submit that to Netflix. And you also got to make sure that it goes well, right? I mean, you don't want to submit Netflix a tape where I'm bombing, So I figure out the 30 minutes that I want to do. I'm filming in the South and the Midwest, and then I go to New York City to record. So I'm like, well, I hope this audience understands what a trailer park is.
To start with.
Yeah. Because this is a big part.
We're going to need that piece of knowledge for this to work.
Yes. So I just basically pulled a bunch of old jokes, a lot from the late nights that I had done over the years. And because I'm like, this Netflix is bigger than all of the late nights.
Sure.
So I'm like, I want people to see this, but I also want them to be able to watch this half hour and then come see me, and I'm doing a full new hour.
That makes sense.
So, because that's what I do when I do shows. I do an hour. So I'm like, I got these jokes that I've already done that, I can use here.
Tried, tested, everything, that's solid material.
Right. And then I'm like already on my way to having another hour recorded if there, comes an opportunity for another, hour special.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what that looks like anymore. It seems like that whole landscape is changing. So I don't know. But
a lot of people just putting them straight on YouTube now.
I know, and I like that. I mean, I put my 5 o'clock somewhere joke on YouTube, and it's like, it's doing really well.
Yeah.
And it's like, then you own the content, and
Bingo.
then you can monetize it, and then, you can also cut it up into little clips, and then you gain the subscribers. And that's really what I want, is just to be able to put out, the comedy that I like to people that like my comedy.
Right.
And you have a podcast?
I do have a podcast. I'm on the Nateland podcast.
Yeah, I've seen you on Nate's show.
Yeah. I'm a regular co-host there now.
Was Nate in Nashville when you first moved here? Or was he...
I think he had just gotten back.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know him, but one of my first open mics in town, actually my very first open mic when I moved here, he was there. And I was like, all right, I've made the right move.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
That dude is absolutely hysterical.
Yeah, and then I do my own podcast called the We're Having a Good Time podcast.
Yeah.
So I have a couple that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm fairly new to Nateland, and that's been a big help to me. I mean, Nate's got a huge following. But my own podcast, I get a little more personal about what's going on and share some stories. I mean, I haven't drank in like 10 years, but I got a lot of fun drinking stories. But I also like to, I always say it in a way that it's like if people are drinking and handling it and having fun, great. But if you're like in a place where you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, I think that sometimes I have helpful things.
Encouraging.
Yeah. It's like, that basically your life is not over if you quit drinking.
It can still be fun.
Yeah, because that's how it felt for me in some ways. It's like my whole life was drinking. All my friends were in the bars. So it's like, if I quit this.
It's just a lifestyle that goes along with it.
And it was a blast.
But
I was beat down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's, I just kind of talk about that sort of stuff that,
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why, how we said things are changing and people are doing the question answer thing at the end of the bits. It's because, I listen to your podcast and I feel like I know you. You don't feel like you know me because you're just talking in a podcast, right? But I feel like I know you. So when you come and do a show and then you let people talk a little bit and ask you questions, even if I'm not asking a question, but other people are, and I get to, I think that's why it's changing because of this big podcast thing that happened. Sorry.
Yeah, because we've talked about this before. When we talk to comedians, we're talking to them like we know them because we've seen hours of them just talking, and sometimes you have to go, but they don't know us at all. They don't know why we have a sense of humor. We say something like, we're not comics, right? We just watch them.
We feel
and
like
when we do them on Zoom, we talk about you're watching the computer and talking to people, and we just start getting slack jawed and go, I'm not watching a podcast. I'm doing one now.
Right.
It's like, this is the greatest. You ask them questions and they'll answer you. What an interactive podcast.
Yeah, it is wild. I mean, because people will say stuff to me at shows sometimes, and I'll think, how do you know that?
Yeah,
and
when did I say that?
Oh, that's because I've told you all these personal things on a podcast. Yeah.
And then you wonder about those comedians that constantly bust each other's balls when they get out in public. Is the general public giving them shit about being fat or bald or whatever their comic friends are doing? They're like, hey, you can't be doing that to me. You don't even know me,
Yeah.
And I can imagine.
I think they do that. I mean, I went out with Bert Kreischer a little bit.
Oh, so there's a lot of Bert is fat stuff going on. He'd be one that would
or
be able
he's
to take
racist and he fucks dogs.
Yeah,
there's a lot of it.
Stuff.
There's a lot of it.
But yeah, he has a really wild fan base. I mean, he's doing like stadiums now. But when he was just doing theaters when I went on a run with him, and it's like he'll do these meet and greets, and everyone takes their shirt off to take pictures with him. So he's just like rubbing up with sweaty dudes.
And they'll all buy him a shot.
Yeah.
Well, maybe your 5 o'clock somewhere is the machine for him.
Maybe
you
so.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be great.
And you won't have to take off your shirt and rub against anybody.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That. Yeah.
And I just talk about country music. I mean, I love that. I love doing country music jokes. I always, I was just thinking about recently trying to write a joke about the Travis Tritt song, It's a Great Day to Be Alive. You know, because it's like, he says it's a great day to be alive in the chorus, but if you listen to the first verse, you're not thinking that's what's going on, right? He starts the song by going, I got rice cooking in the microwave. Right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's not a great day, is it?
There's been better days than that. You might have a whole new genre you've just created. Yeah. This is great.
Yeah, I mean, my idea is that you don't make fun of the song. You just talk about the guy in the song or whoever the character is. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Kenny Rogers, you might want to dig into The Coward of the County sometime.
Oh, yeah.
And just read the lyrics. I went back when he died, and I'm like, oh my God, it's about gang rape. I had no idea.
Wild. That second verse is wild.
And then they name check. It's going up from the weeds here, but they name check the Gatlin brothers who did the raping in the song.
Oh, yeah.
And apparently, I went down a rabbit hole, and whoever wrote the song, which wasn't Kenny Rogers, had a beef with the Gatlin brothers, something about a previous music award. So he just dropped the name in just to turn the screws. I'm like, wow, this is.
Did they do a whole Cocaine and Rhinestones episode on all that?
I don't know. Maybe.
I haven't heard that one. I did listen to a lot of those.
It's like the first season, though, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but the song was wild.
Yeah.
Gatlin boys came calling.
Yeah. 3 of them.
And they took turns at Becky.
Yeah.
There was 3. Yeah, it's an intense song.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. It's like the new reaction video, your bit. You know, those guys are reacting to songs and...
Oh, that's true. Just a well-written reaction video.
Yeah.
That's the new genre.
Yeah.
Well done.
I love it.
I'm into that.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Dusty, thanks for doing this with us.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Thanks
This
for
was
coming
great.
down. This was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll put up links and all that kind of stuff to all your stuff when we
Yeah.
put this up.
Thank
and
you.
can't wait to see you again live.
All right. Well, I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Dusty Slay is my favorite comedian.
He was good. I love the Southern comics. And a homeboy from in town. It's always good to have him in studio.
Yeah.
He looks like your uncle, Lucas. Anyway, enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Did we cheers yet?
Enjoy your cigarette.